Let's now get into another conversation, very important. A government speaking strongly against increasing racial tension in the Groblersdal area that's in Limpopo. This follows the public display of an apartheid flag during a court case against two farmers who allegedly assaulted their employee and set dogs on him. Now, the incident has sparked widespread condemnation, drawing the attention of top government officials who attended the latest court appearance. Let's speak now to Limpopo Premier Stan Mathabatha, who was among those who were in court on Wednesday. Premier, let me thank you very much for your time. I'm aware that you've had to move away from the Cabinet Lekgotla for this conversation to be had. You were at court yesterday. You would have experienced what that town of Groblersdal is like. Explain it in your words, how you would describe the mood in Groblersdal right now, or should we be more specific and say race relations in that small town?
Good morning, Xoli, and good morning to your viewers also. Fortunately, Xoli, that is my hometown. I grew up in that town. I know it very well. It's not like it's something that is very common. Racism is very common in that town. That is not the case. Racists are very, very, very few in that town, but they are there. You do have some few enclaves where people are actually wanting to live as if they are still living in the old apartheid South Africa. So that is why you saw what happened to that unfortunate situation that happened to that person in that farm. Being a farmer myself, I'm staying in a farm most of the time, and then I can rest assure you that I'm living with so many white farmers in Groblersdal. So that is why I'm saying it's not very common. But there are races that needs to be flushed out of our communities.
Well, let's focus the attention more than on race relations. I take your point that there aren't racists in Groblersdal, but there are those who still live as though we are in the apartheid days. What has been done, Premier, to address this situation? Because the police minister makes mention of previous cases, and most recent was the one that took place. It was in June of 2022. In October of that year, Corey Pretorius, who assaulted a 16-year-old whilst he held a gun in his hand, kicking this young man, stomping on his chest and abdomen. He was eventually convicted by a court of law. But what is it that you, as political activists, you know, the ANC usually talks about being a leader of society. What has been done to address this?
You see, Xoli, what we are actually doing as politicians, politicians in their job, generally we work like we are social activists. We're trying to assist people to understand their political situation, the political situation around them, and make it meaningful to them. So that you should not find people staying together but being intolerant with each other's cultures, traditions, custom, and all those kind of things. And even the way in which people behave, people must be tolerant. So in Groblersdal also, we are planning to do so. Remember, we've got organs of civil society in that town also. Like I'm saying, I grew up there. I know that if we are even going to churches to do all these kind of things. But what I must emphasize is the issue of the law enforcement. the law enforcement that we have been assured by the minister, the two ministers, was so, should I say, encouraging to see the two ministers coming and saying, "Hey, man, we are seeing such such features in this town. This is now for the second time that we are seeing features of this nature in this town. It's not even the second time. Remember, that even before this, we had this kind of experiences in not only in Groblersdal, but in the farms around Groblersdal also, you know. So they are saying that they will make it a point that they deploy special units to investigate as to what is happening in that area. Is it a situation where the racists are trying to come back and organize those who are like them in that area? Or even, you know, what is even worrisome is that in this particular case that we are talking about, this thing is being translated, or perhaps should I say, is being cascaded down to another generation, because it's the father and the son, which means that young man of 20-something years of age who doesn't even know apartheid is being inculcated with the ethos and values, if there are, the ethos and values of apartheid.
Yeah.
No.
Premier.
So that is very worrisome to us. Hence, I am saying this, the law enforcement becomes very critical, but also the social aspect of it, that of making it a point that we transform the way people live, the way people interact with each other, interface with each other, which to me is what is more critical.
Premier Mathabatha, there is a very important development in the country this year, and that is the elections we are going to. There is a relationship of interdependence among the communities that live in farming areas. What do I mean by this? There's a farmer who is the employer and employs locals to come and work at his farm, and in return, the employees get paid and go and sustain their families. That relationship, oftentimes, Premier, we cover stories. It's not a new phenomenon that, for example, a farmer would refuse for his workers to go and vote on the day of election, and yet it is declared a public holiday. Such incidents are probably going to crop up again in this period. Already we have framed this conversation around tense race relations. Does that point to some kind of failure of the democratic order? Because on the 27th of April, we're going to be marking 30 years as a democratic state. But we still have such issues. And I suppose I'm going to go back to that initial question as to what has been done, and clearly whatever it is that's been done, it's not gone far enough because we have these kinds of cleavages.
You know, if that was a common phenomenon, or something that is happening, is an occurrence that happens very frequently, I would talk about the failure of democracy. But currently, you would find that it is just droplets. You know, it's a few farms. It's not every farm. You know, Groblersdal is a farming town. Marble Hall is a farming town. That is what we call the Loskop Valley farms. Out of all those farms, you'll find that it's 2 or 3 farmers who does that. But it is again the task of all of us as agents of change, agents of civil society, to ensure that even those who are still behind in terms of development, in terms of understanding what this democracy is trying to inculcate in our people, you know, it's our task to ensure that we reach out to them We reach out to them and sort of educate and train these people to understand that it is not right to do certain things, you know. But again, law enforcement, because it is illegal to do what you are saying is happening. It is illegal to stop, to bar people from going to court. And in most instances, when you find this kind of things happening, you find that this farmer is employing too many foreign illegal immigrants. You know? And that is something, that, a phenomenon also that we are fighting against. We are trying to squash out of our societies.
Final question to you, Premier Mathabatha. There are those who may possibly want to use this case as political capital, or let's say as ammunition against yourself. You are the first citizen of Limpopo, but more important right now is that you are a child of Groblersdal. As a political activist, there are those who are going to say this is an utter failure on the part of the Premier, someone who leads not just the ANC, but who also leads the Limpopo province, that in his hometown, there are people who still, 30 years into our democracy, are waving the old South African flag, which has been declared by a court of law to be a criminal offense. Is that a reflection on your leadership, you think?
I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say so. Absolutely. In fact, it's far from the truth. Remember what I said when we started with this conversation, that these are droplets. It's not a common feature. At some stage, when I was still young in Groblersdal, there were certain streets where black people would not walk. It was a verkrampte town, if you would understand what, a very conservative town. But you no longer find that kind of situation in that town. Like I am saying, there are many white African people who are not racist in Groblersdal. But there are those few who are still racist, and we must deal with those people. If you say it's a failure from the part of an individual leader, it's something else. Because like I'm saying, reading out corruption from the society is a societal matter. Racism. Racism is an international phenomenon. We are still dealing with it even in Palestine today. We are dealing with it in East Asia. We are dealing with people are still fighting against that in the United States of America. So it can be, the yardstick can't be 30 years, because it's an international phenomenon, and it's a human behavior.
Yeah.
It's not something like when you solve issues of racism, it's not like you are solving a mathematical problem that you can say, in 2 years' time I'll be done with this. It's a societal matter. You are dealing with thinking beings. You are dealing with social beings. It will take you a little bit of time. But what I'm trying to say to you is that the route that we have walked, the distance that we have walked till that's far, I think is actually satisfying. Though racism in itself is a worrying factor.
What's your message, therefore, particularly to the perpetrators of this kind of violence? Because this is violent behavior over and above it being racism.
I must warn these people that as both the provincial and the national government, this ANC-led government, we fought against racism, we fought against all these kind of reactionary tendencies, racism, Nazism, all these kind of reactionary tendencies. And we are not going to leave any stone unturned in dealing with this. And hence you saw us in court, because we wanted to see justice being done. Because we have promulgated laws in this country that deals with this kind of scourge. And we are not going to sit idle and watch our people being persecuted by racists. We are going to flush out of the system all these racists. They must just know that they've got no place in this country.
Stan Mathabatha, Premier of Limpopo Province, thank you very much for your time.